Doctor's visits are not worth your time and money if you do not get to the root cause of the underlying problem or condition. With over 25 years of experience as a healthcare provider and functional medicine practitioner, I'm committed to leaving no stone unturned in optimizing your health. We provide holistic healthcare utilizing 21st century technology. It's time for you to feel informed and empowered by your healthcare provider so that you can get back to caring for your family, serving your community, and enjoying the life you have. So when we start talking about hormone replacement, whether it's for the perimenopausal woman or the menopausal woman, there's so much confusion about terminology. I find that there's confusion even amongst providers who, in my opinion, should be pretty comfortable and understand the nuances between all these terms. So basically you have two categories. You have synthetic hormones, chemically not identical to the hormones our bodies produce, so that's considered synthetic, and then bioidentical hormones. And so there's a lot of drama out there in regard to that terminology and what it means and how we go about getting bioidentical hormones. So let me talk about synthetic first. Synthetic is a no. And whenever possible, even for a young woman who might be considering oral contraceptives, those are synthetic hormones. And I understand sometimes that's just kind of necessary in a woman's life. And I get that, and I certainly respect that. So if you are a woman, who is sexually active and not in the baby making realm, then yeah, you do obviously need to consider your birth control options. So if you do decide that oral contraceptive or birth control pills are your best option, then please ask your provider to give you the lowest dose. And in my experience, most women do well on the very low dose pills. And so one of them is called low estrin, LOESTRIN, low estrin. It has the smallest amount of the synthetic estrogen in that one, 10 micrograms. These birth control pills go up to, I know there's 35 microgram birth control pills. So that's one of the higher doses. So you probably, if you're on the birth control pill right now, you may have absolutely no idea what you're on and what your dose is. So my encouragement to all of you is to begin to study that a little bit and to look up what you're on and determine what your dose of the synthetic estrogen is, and maybe ask your provider, would I be a good candidate? Could we try reducing my dose and just see if it agrees with you? Now, some women who have significant hormonal and usually they're in tandem, metabolic disturbance, that woman may have significant issues with bleeding. Maybe she's got fibroids. There can be some other aggravating factors that would contribute to a heavy flow. And that woman may require a higher dose to calm her bleeding down. So again, you can probably discern from what I'm talking to you about that this is very individual. This is a case by case basis. So this is not a one size fits all. And this is not me saying you must do such and such. I want you to be educated. I want you to be aware of what all these things are, and are there potentially some unhappy side effects with long-term use of synthetic hormones. There's a lot about this that is a little unknown because some of this has never been studied. These are just things that I lie in bed and think about at 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't point to a big trial that was done and published in a, prestigious journal that backs up my wondering about some of this. But I'm of a mindset personally, knowing what I know now and being menopausal, I want to keep things as close to my body's natural rhythm as possible. I want to use hormone replacement products that can closely replicate what hormones my body was making at the height of my reproductive years. So synthetic, those are birth control pills, Mirena IUD, the Skyla IUD, all those. Paragard is a copper IUD. That is a non-hormonal option. So if an IUD sounds like something that you might consider, then definitely speak to your provider about that. A few reports I've heard from some women having used Paragard is that it can cause some heavy bleeding. But I haven't heard that from every woman on a Paragard. So know that going into it, if you've not had one before, and discuss it. Go in prepared, to that appointment, to even have some questions written down and so that you feel educated about the situation and that you feel like you have all the information you need to make an informed decision about what feels right for you. Because I'm not the boss of you, and neither is your OBGYN. You're the boss of you. So remember that, please. So I'm not a big fan of synthetic hormones, or if one has to use birth control pills because you're sexually active and you're trying to prevent a pregnancy, then use that for the shortest period of time necessary. I object vehemently to the long-term use of that, like across the 40s and into the 50s, to control perimenopausal heavy bleeding. And I think I need to address that in a different video because there's some in-depth discussion I'd like to have about that. And then the other terminology we hear used is the bioidentical. And I think there's a misunderstanding about that term. There's a thought that, well, we can only get bioidentical hormones through compounding. And that's not really true. We have certainly compounding available to us where I can have a compounding pharmacist compound any number of DHEA, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, and your two types of estrogen, estradiol and then estriol. I can have all of that compounded, tailored just to what I feel like the patient needs. So I love that I have that option for my people that don't do well on the commercially available bioidentical products. And let me tell you what those are. For the menopausal woman, there is transdermal estradiol, which is a patch. So it's applied to the skin, you change it twice a week, and it diffuses the estradiol 24/7 into the bloodstream, bypassing the liver and the gut and going directly to the cell. Even though that is a commercially available product, that is bioidentical estradiol. So say I have a woman that is concerned about budget because compounded hormones are not covered by health insurance. So that is an out-of-pocket expense. So I have to be very aware of every person that sits right here and what her level of comfort is with a monthly expenditure towards her hormone replacement. So I often use, if my patient is like, she's stressed because of budget, you're paying to come see me. So there's that investment you've already made in this journey. Plus I may suggest or request that you take certain supplements, which is an expenditure. So, I have to be aware of all of this and I have to be sensitive to my patient. So where there are some really cool hormone gurus out there in the world that I've trained under, and one doctor in particular is pretty much exclusively uses compounds and topicals. That's kind of her baby. She's been doing it for 30 years. She's extremely successful. But when I'm sitting in that class with her, back in the spring, I'm thinking to myself, I hear you, and I receive and appreciate what you're teaching me about the benefit and the beauty of compounded hormones, but it might not be in everyone's budget. So I have to be aware of that. So estradiol through a patch is bioidentical. Now, estradiol in a pill is technically bioidentical, but in my study of 12 years now, studying under some of the top hormone people in the world, it's really not a great idea. And the consensus is oral estrogen is a no-no in menopause. And there are some reasons why that is. You have a type of estrogen that you can potentially make called estrone. And from estrone flows your estrogen metabolites. And some of those estrogen metabolites can be problem children if your liver is not robustly processing and metabolizing your estrogen. And from your health history and your reproductive history, I can gather whether or not you are processing estrogen well or if you have an issue with that. So oral estrogen can exacerbate that whole pathway and light it on fire and create inflammation. So I do not prescribe oral estrogen, and I really counsel my menopausal women to not accept that we can do a gel. They make commercial estradiol gels that are applied topically, and they make vaginal estrogen creams that are commercially available, that are bioidentical, that insurance will cover. So you've got gel applied topically, you've got a patch applied transdermally, and you could possibly have cream inserted vaginally. It just depends on the person, what your symptoms are, and how do we best go about putting together a regimen that's going to work for you. And then you have the whole compound option. Everyone that is just interesting. Everybody that comes here is just their own unique weirdo self. So I can't come at every person and do for her what I did with the 3 that came before her. That's not the way to approach this. It is not a one-size-fits-all. So through the compounding, as I said, I can have anything compounded at any dose. I can pick within tenths of milligrams or micrograms. I can very much tailor dosing to what I think the patient needs. And if I think they're a sensitive Sally, then I actually may want to use like a topical compound that comes in a syringe where we have control over the dosing, where we can adjust and tweak, where a patch is a patch. I can't make it more, I can't make it less. A capsule is a capsule. I can't make the dose more and I can't make it less. It is what it is. And so if my patient has invested some money into these products, I don't want them to have to waste things. So I just take all of that into my brain as I'm trying to come up with a protocol to help my patient be their best. So I obviously take care of a lot of people who have hormonal issues. Many of them lately in the last couple of years are coming having had experienced pellets. Again, let me introduce this topic with the caveat of every one of you is different. So if you're listening to this video and you're like, but I have pellets and I love them, then just scroll. Don't even listen to me. If the shoe don't fit, baby, don't pick it up and put it on. I might not be talking to you. Because I understand, and I have talked to other providers, not locally, in other states, when I've attended meetings in other places, and I do know that pellets can be very successful. What I have observed here is that it seems to be a revolving door type approach to the care of the man or woman on pellet therapy. So I object to that. I don't feel like there's a thorough workup. I object to that. I don't feel like it's a holistic approach, meaning they're not investigating all the 5 areas of your foundation that I've spoken at length about. Because if hormone replacement just in general, no matter what vehicle is being used to deliver the hormone replacement, it's not magic. It doesn't have magic powers to correct everything that's wrong. I also have a chart, a graph, if you will, of the hormone cascade that stays on my desk at my right hand because I nerd out on it. I love it. It makes me happy to look at it and to appreciate the complexity of my own hormonal makeup, but yours as well. And I think that any provider who is prescribing hormones of any sort needs to know this chart like the back of their hand. It needs to be comfortable. They need to understand the terminology. They need to be aware of estrogen metabolism. How do I assess that? What do I do if it doesn't look right? There's so much to this. It's kind of like being an injector. I do aesthetic injections, neuromodulators, fillers. Those are not magic either. So when I'm doing a consult with a new patient who's interested in one of those treatments, I spent 53 minutes the other day with a new aesthetic client, and she left with brochures and we did nothing because I could not do what she asked me to do because I knew that she wasn't going to get the results she wanted and she would be disappointed and she'd be mad at me because I'm the one who did it and she didn't get the results. So I had to explain to her over 53 minutes why some neuromodulator in her forehead was not going to correct all of her issues. Long-term smoker, long-term sun damage. So imagine what that looks like in your 70s. So to be an ethical aesthetic provider, a person of integrity, I don't need to just sell something to the person sitting in front of me if they're not an appropriate candidate for what it is they're asking. It's my job to say no, knowing full well she could have walked out the door and gone down the street or down the interstate to a number of other providers who would have had her injected in 8.7 minutes and out the door. But I didn't do that. And I'm not like, look at me, how great I am, pat myself on the back. I want to take good care of everybody that comes. And my personal philosophy is that this belongs to God. He's gifted me with it. This is how I use my gifts and talents to help people. And so if this belongs to God, and I can't expect to be prosperous or blessed in what I'm doing if I'm not walking in integrity to the best of my ability with every single one of you. So I guess what I'm admitting to you is I'm a control freak and I have a way that I think things should be being done. And when it comes to your hormones, this is too important of an issue for someone treating you who doesn't have a complete and in-depth grasp of the complexity here in every man and in every woman, and that there's so many other factors that contribute to how I feel from day to day, even though I walk around with balanced hormones. So in my experience and observation of people with pellets, it seems that many have a great experience initially, but then it seems to lose its luster. And I think maybe the reason that that is happening is that people are being overdosed. They're being hit with a sledgehammer instead of a feather. I don't agree with the sledgehammer approach. And also, let me meddle even more in your business right now. And again, if this doesn't apply to you, scroll on. Don't come at me in the comments because I'm not talking to every one of you. I'm only talking to the ones that this resonates with. You're not a man. All my ladies watching this video, you're not a man. You're not meant to be a man. You're not meant to have the hormone levels of a man. I think that the way we're approaching, especially perimenopausal women with testosterone, is potentially harmful. I think it's sending a very wrong message to women, and by extension to men. We're not meant to be men. We're not designed like men. We don't have a sex drive. Most of us, I'm generalizing here. Most of us don't have a sex drive that a man does. At least that was my experience in my marriage of 32 years. We were not always equal in that. Sometimes I was here and he was here, and vice versa. Sometimes we were, so there's a dynamic nature to all of that in our marriages and our relationships. The point I'm attempting to make, without causing World War III in my comments, is that sometimes libido has nothing to do with your testosterone level. And that's my objection to the throwing the big fat dose in a pellet form at you and sending you out into the wild. Your hair starts falling out, your skin breaks out, you're greasy as a pig. You've got all these side effects. You start gaining weight around the middle, and guess what? We can't get that out of you. Sorry. And there's that. But then I'm trying to find my words to say it in a way that's not offensive. I think we're doing women a disservice. You're not a man. Your libido is complicated. Women don't prioritize sex when they're exhausted. We're not designed in the way men are. If you think about men and the stereotypical role that men have had throughout the ages of killing the bear, fighting the bear, killing the food for the family, fighting for the family. Well, now we don't have to literally chase our food down and kill it, so thank goodness for some of how that has changed. But men are specifically designed they can compartmentalize well. I can remember, back in the day when I was married and, Jerry and I would have a fuss about something. Well, I'm a sensitive Sally, so I'm stewing and feeling wounded. And, hours go by, it's time for bed, and he gives me the eye. And I'm like, do you remember we just had this fuss a few hours ago? And but baby, he's locked that in the back corner of his brain out in left field somewhere. He's not thinking about that. His brain is different than mine. And I feel like I could be the most amazing marriage and sex counselor because I've got all this benefit of hindsight now and having some clarity as to who I was married to and all the ups and downs in our relationship through the years and how we navigated him being who he was and me being who I was and, wanting to make that work and our marriage be a beautiful, happy marriage. And in most ways it was, though we had our issues like everyone. But when I was exhausted, kids hanging on me, I'm in school, I'm doing all the things moms do. And, I'll finally get in bed at 9 or 10 o'clock at night and I just want to collapse and pass out. And then you got lover boy over there, and you're like, what are you talking about? So giving a woman a big fat dose of testosterone, yeah, it might raise her libido temporarily. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying we're different. And I don't feel like this current approach, especially in the perimenopausal woman, the woman who's not yet menopausal, but she's experiencing these symptoms of, I'm tired, I'm brain dead, I don't care about sex. These things that can be very aggravating in your marriage. Testosterone's just one little piece of that overall health puzzle is the point I'm trying to make here. I'm not trying to generalize or I am generalizing. I'm not trying to say specifically every single woman is like this. I'm drawing on my own experiences being married, and I'm drawing on, the collective experiences of all the women I've talked to in the last 12 years. So I'd be interested to know kind of your thoughts if you've been a pellet patient and that was a successful intervention for you. Yay. But I must take care of all the little delicate flowers because I get ones that were it was kind of great at the beginning and then it just wasn't great at all, or it was terrible from day one, so I hear a variety of reports in that. But my another point here I want to make is I want to utilize products that very as closely as possible replicate the natural rhythm I had when my hormones were in their optimal levels, say in my 30s. So I want to use products that closely replicate that lovely balance and profile of hormone delivery into my system. So I currently am using an estrogen patch. I use oral, sustained release, compounded progesterone. I use a compounded testosterone troche in a small dose because I'm just trying to optimize my levels for brain, bones, strength, my ability to build muscle when I'm training. So there's so many other benefits to optimizing all of my hormones and not just picking on one and throwing it all out of balance. I think that's my other most significant objection, because there's not appreciation for the delicate balance that we all were born with. And I want to respect that, even now that I'm menopausal and my ovaries are probably microscopic shriveled almonds at this point. So, not stepping on anyone's toes, I'm wanting to just have a conversation about the benefits, or maybe are there risks associated with these approaches, and we need to be careful and respectful, and this is a big deal. My hormones and your hormones are a big deal. So I hope I've communicated that well, and that you understand that I'm not vilifying that delivery method. I just am concerned that there's not adequate training, there's not follow-up training, there's not an appreciation for the overall complexity of all of my hormones, that there is a definite balance that I was born with, and I think we should maintain that across the lifespan. Doctor's visits are not worth your time and money if you do not get to the root cause of the underlying problem or condition. At New Beginnings, we believe in the power of preventative care as the foundation of your wellness journey. Our approach goes beyond treating symptoms. We're dedicated to uncovering the root cause of your health concerns to ensure long-term vitality. With over 25 years of experience as a healthcare provider and functional medicine practitioner, I'm committed to leaving no stone unturned in optimizing your health. I've helped countless patients with problems such as infertility, cardiovascular issues, nutrient deficiencies, thyroid imbalances, and many more. Our care is comprehensive and personalized. We not only address your current needs, but also focus on preventative measures to keep you thriving in every season of life. Here, you will never be dismissed. We provide premier, holistic healthcare utilizing 21st century technology that is tailored to your unique needs, because your wellness is actually the priority. It's time for you to feel informed and empowered by your healthcare provider so that you can get back to caring for your family, serving your community, advancing in your career, and enjoying the life you have.